How Andrew Wiggins reinvented his game. Let's get into this. Quickly before we get the video started, if you guys enjoy this video and want to see more NBA content just like this one, hit that subscribe button and that post notification bell. Anyways, back to the video. Andrew Wiggins was drafted #1 overall originally by the Cleveland Cavaliers and then later traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Coming out of college, I made another video about this, but Andrew Wiggins had crazy expectations. He was potentially seen as the next LeBron James to come into the NBA, and of course he's never lived up to those expectations, and I made a video about that recently. Check that out if you guys haven't seen that one yet. Although of course there were definitely some issues with Andrew Wiggins in Minnesota, he overall did have a pretty good career, averaging anywhere from 22 to 25 points per game. But I think the main reason why the public perception of Wiggins was so negative was because the expectations of Andrew Wiggins coming into the NBA was potentially being the next LeBron James and maybe at the very least a superstar player with crazy talent going forward, and the fact that Wiggins was never really close to even being a superstar and he was just a decent level all-star at his best was kind of disappointing for a lot of different people. But let's talk about what Wiggins was actually able to do in Minnesota. On the offensive side of the ball, starting with his best ability was definitely his driving and finishing ability. Wiggins coming out of the draft and coming into the NBA was always known as probably one of, if not the most athletic player we have in the NBA. Wiggins time in and time again was always able to get downhill, and once he got all the way to the basket, he had some crazy posterizing dunks over very good defenders as well. But even besides that, Wiggins was able from time to time to actually put up some nice crafty layups and use his athleticism not only to dunk over people, but to really hang in the air and outlast the defender to put up some nice layups as well. So overall, Andrew Wiggins' finishing ability was definitely one of the more refined parts of his game. But now talking about his mid-range shooting ability, this was definitely something that was pretty good as well. He had a nice clean jump shot from that mid-range area. He was definitely a guy who was able to catch and shoot. He was actually very effective at that pull-up mid-range jump shot and also that post-turnaround fadeaway jump shot, which is something he kind of added to within his game later on in his Minnesota career. But once he added it to his game, it was pretty actually efficient and effective. So overall, his mid-range shooting ability and his driving ability was definitely pretty refined and definitely a strength of his game. But now talking about his three-point shooting ability, this is definitely somewhere where he struggled. When you look at his actual skill and talent, he was definitely a guy who was able to hit three-point jump shots in terms of catch and shoot, spotting up three-point shots. He also had a little bit of a pull-up three-point jump shot. He also was able to cross over into a three-point jump shot. He can come off a screen from time to time into a three-point shot. He had the skills to actually make some three-pointers, but the real issue with Wiggins from that three-point line was his efficiency numbers. And what I mean by this is there's definitely some games where Wiggins was shooting very effectively from that three-point line and he was just on the money that game, but there were some other games where he's completely off of the money and he just didn't have it from that three-point line whatsoever. But the issue was he would keep shooting those three-point shots if they were contested, if they were open, whatever, and he would just continuously miss shot after shot from that three-point line. And not only does he hurt his team, of course, by just missing three-point shots, but he hurts himself in terms of his efficiency numbers and what he's providing to the team overall, and that was a real big issue in my opinion. But overall, I think there was a few different reasons why Wiggins didn't necessarily work out in Minnesota. Starting with the first reason, I think of course with any player, whenever you draft someone, the lack of winning. Wiggins was drafted #1 overall, and when he was drafted, he was seen as a savior of the Minnesota franchise that wasn't good for some time at that point. So after drafting Wiggins, there was an expectation that he by himself, along with some other players that hopefully the Minnesota Timberwolves would pick up, would actually help bring this team back to relevant, and at the very least, be a perennial playoff team, and maybe even a little bit more than that going forward. But unfortunately, the Timberwolves barely made the playoffs. They made the playoffs one season with Jimmy Butler when he was on the team with Wiggins, and that didn't necessarily work out in the end. And overall, the Timberwolves just didn't win enough, and that was probably the biggest reason why Wiggins didn't work out in Minnesota. But another issue, and another reason in my opinion why I think Wiggins didn't work out in Minnesota, was the fact that a lot of players on his team and different coaches and other outlets or whatever, they were all saying that Wiggins wasn't working hard enough on his basketball game. And of course, you can have all the talent in the world, which Wiggins did, by the way, going into the NBA. But no matter who you are, if you don't work very hard on your game during the offseason, during the season, just work on different parts of your game and always try to improve, it's really going to show and it's going to affect you going forward. And it seemed to me and to a lot of different NBA fans and players that Wiggins got to that certain point where he's able to average anywhere from 22 to 25 points per game on not crazy efficient numbers, probably pretty inefficient numbers, but it seems like he kind of stalled out at that point and didn't work harder to improve his game further than that and really become a true superstar in this league. So those are the two reasons, in my opinion, why I think Wiggins never really truly worked out in Minnesota, and they ended up moving on from him and trading him to the Golden State Warriors. But once Wiggins actually got traded to the Warriors, there's one of two different directions he could have took. Either one, he could have realized that his game wasn't good enough and he really had to put work in the gym to improve other aspects of his game and make him a more complete player going forward, or he could have taken it in the way that the Timberwolves were completely giving up on him and maybe he would lose his confidence because previously he was a #1 overall pick and now he's getting traded to the Golden State Warriors for not that much in return. But luckily for Wiggins himself, but also the Warriors, Wiggins really looked himself in the mirror and picked option A. He put in a ton of work ever since getting to the Warriors in the gym during the off seasons, during the regular season, working with different players on the team to really improve parts of his game that wasn't that efficient previously, and really made himself a much better player for the Warriors. Now, of course, you could look at the Warriors roster and also the fact that the Warriors organization is known for great talent development and say that's the only reason why Wiggins is playing much better in Golden State than he was in Minnesota. When you look at the guys he's playing with, Steph Curry, of course, Klay Thompson is of course injured at the time, but also a guy like Draymond Green who could definitely help him out in certain areas, and also a guy like James Wiseman who's a very high overall draft pick. You could definitely say those players take a lot of pressure off a guy like Andrew Wiggins and makes his life a lot more easy than it was in Minnesota. I think that's also pretty true, but I think there's a few different things specifically that Wiggins improved within his game that doesn't really have anything to do with switching teams. The first thing is his three-point shooting ability. So of course in the past I mentioned Wiggins always had that jump shot and the ability to hit three-point jump shots, but the issue with him was his efficiency numbers. But ever since getting to the Warriors, he clearly put in a ton of work on his three-point jump shot specifically during the offseason with other players. Maybe he got some tips from a guy like Steph Curry. Of course, that's going to help you as a shooter going forward. But in Golden State, he's shooting 38% from that three-point range, when on his career, he's only a 33 or 34% three-point shooter. So clearly, that's a pretty big jump. But the next thing that Wiggins really did within his game is work on his defensive ability. You can tell ever since Wiggins actually got into the NBA, he always had the potential of being an amazing defender. Whenever you have a guy with very long arms, which Wiggins did, very athletic guy, which Wiggins clearly was, and also somewhat strong on the defensive side of the ball, which Wiggins kind of has as well at this point in his career, there's always the potential for that guy to be an amazing defender. Now, whenever you see Wiggins on the court defending whoever, he's always guarding the opposing team's best player, and he's doing an absolute amazing job on them. There are certain guys that Wiggins completely locks down, where in the past, maybe Wiggins wasn't that great of a defender, honestly. So the fact that he went from a maybe okay defender in the past to an absolutely elite defender with the Warriors is actually a pretty crazy difference, and just adds that much more value to his game going forward. And besides those major two differences from Minnesota to Golden State in terms of his three-point shooting ability and his defense, the other aspects of his game also got better. His mid-range shooting got better and more efficient. His driving and finishing ability got better and more efficient. Every aspect of his game got a lot better. His passing ability got a little better as well. He's always known as a guy who wasn't a great passer at all, and he's still not a good passer even in Golden State, but his basketball IQ and passing ability definitely did get slightly better ever since he's gotten to the Golden State. So it's great to see a guy like Andrew Wiggins, who's so deep into his NBA career, actually completely reinvent himself and look himself in the mirror for the better. So to answer the question of the video, which is how did Andrew Wiggins actually reinvent himself ever since getting to the Warriors, the answer is his defense and his three-point shooting ability, and just overall making himself a much better player. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. How do you guys personally think Wiggins improved his game so significantly ever since getting to the Warriors? Or do you guys maybe think he didn't improve his game? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe and hit that post notification bell. It really helps me out a lot. Until the next time, peace out, guys.